You are welcome to another edition of the Rock Tutors online class. And in today's class, we have about 50 carefully prepared questions for UTME, particularly in areas that have proven to be hard, to be excruciating, and to be naughty, that has given students tough times. So I believe that in this class, we will do justice to those questions, we will dismantle them into pieces, and you guys are going to come out with good knowledge that will stand you good stead for the forthcoming UTME. Work with me. So I have the 50 questions listed here. I'll read the questions and then I will I will do justice by giving lucid, clear, and perspicuous explanations. So the first question: when workers in government ministries are to be seen and not to be heard, it underscores a feature called dash. When workers in government ministries are to be seen and not to be heard, it underscores a feature called dash. Now, we have to know that workers in government ministries are known as civil servants, and civil servants are workers in the civil service. Civil service is the personnel arm of the executive. I'll take it again. The civil service architecture is under which organ of government? The executive organ of government. So if a question comes out that the organ, the agency that is responsible for formulating and implementing government policies is dash under the executive, the answer is civil service. So those who work under the civil service are known as what? Civil servants. Now, under civil service, we have different features of the civil service. But the feature that has to do with civil servants being seen but not being heard is known as dash. The answer is anonymity. Anonymity from the word anonymous. So civil servants are expected to carry out their responsibilities without receiving credits or praises and without receiving blame or opprobrium on the other side. So who are those that will take the glory for the success of any government policy? Those that will take the glory will be the political class. Who is the political head of a ministry at the state level? That's the commissioner. Who is the political head of a ministry at the federal level? That's the minister. So they take the glory, they take the blame. While the civil service, they don't take praise and they don't take blame. They are to be seen, but not to be heard. This feature called anonymity, it also has to do with the fact that civil servants cannot grant press interviews. The only category of civil servants that can grant press interviews are permanent secretaries or any top director that is so designated to that effect. So the correct answer for this first question is what? Anonymity. Now to the second question. A feature of the civil service which relates to abstinence from partisan politics is dash. Now, abstinence has to do with avoiding, separating yourself from partisan politics. And what is partisan politics? Partisan politics has to do with, being involved in politicking and politicry in a way that shows that you are going to be biased. That is partisan politics. Are civil servants granted the right to vote? Yes, they can vote during general elections. But can they participate in politics beyond voting? No, they cannot be voted for. If any civil servant would like to aspire for public office, he or she has to resign from the civil service before aspiring for a public office. Can a civil servant join a political party? They are not permitted to join a political party. They must abstain from partisan politics because a feature of the civil service called political neutrality demands, under the general order of the civil service, it demands that civil servants should not participate or partake and should abstain from partisan politics. The only aspect of politics that they are given the opportunity to carry out is to vote. Is that clear? Now to the third question. Workers in government ministries are called dash. Workers in government ministries are called civil servants. So government ministries refers to the agencies, ministries, and departments under the civil service. Now to the next question. Workers under parastatals are called dash. You know, we have two inverted questions now. The first question talks about workers in government ministries. While those workers are called civil servants, workers in parastatals are called public servants. Are they government employees? Yes. What makes them to be different from each other? Now, those who work in the civil service, they are only responsible for formulating and implementing government policies. So workers that are responsible for formulating and implementing government policies are called civil servants. While we have another category, that category is responsible for providing social amenities, social services, essential services, public needs, public utilities like water, like electricity, and so on and so forth. So any government employee that is responsible for providing social amenities and generating income for the government, that employee of the government is a public servant. And where such a person works is called parastatal. And parastatals are also called public corporations. Is that clear? Let's move to the next question. Workers in MDA are known as dash. You won't be able to answer this question without knowing the full meaning of MDA. MDA refers to ministries, departments, and agencies. So anybody working in any agency, any government establishment that can be called a ministry, like Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Science and Innovation, such a person is a civil servant. Now, anybody working in an establishment that starts with Department of Public Works, Department of this and that, such a person is a civil servant. And any government employee that works in an agency, signage agency, waste management agency, and so on and so forth, such a person is also what? A civil servant. So M for ministry, D for department, and A for agencies. So MDA refers to the architecture under the civil service. Now let us move to the next one. The civil service feature, which does not apportion blame or praise to civil servants. So I believe I've made mention of this while explaining question one, that anonymity ensures that civil servants can be seen, but they must not be heard. Anonymity means that they must work, at the back end, while the government, the political class will take the praises and the commendations. And if there is anything to the negative side, like blames and condemnations, it will also be credited to the political class. So civil servants are exempted from praises and blame because of a feature of civil service that is called anonymity. Now to the next question. Rules and regulations of the civil service is known as dash. It is called general order. Is that clear? If you don't come across general order, if you see civil service rules or civil service regulations, you can pick such an option. But if you see civil service rules and you see general order, the perfect answer in such an instance is called what? General order. Now to the next question. Now, for this next set of questions, we have as many questions as possible. It is in form of tabulation, and I think I will do the work of giving us the tabulation. So we have election year. We have electoral body. And we have electoral chairman. So in form of a table. So it is our duty to fill in the gaps. So 1964. So in 1964, which electoral body conducted and organized the federal elections? Students, I hope you guys are following me. So in 1964, which electoral body organized, supervised, and conducted the federal elections? The correct answer is FEC. FEC stands for Federal Electoral Commission. I'll take it again. Federal Electoral Commission. And the electoral chairman for the 1964 federal election was Dr. Eyo Esua. Is that clear? I'm not hearing us. Yes, very good. So Dr. Eyo Esua. Now to the next question. So this question did not give us the election year. It did not give us the electoral body, but we have the electoral chairman. So it beholds of us to know that we should look for the election that had Michael Ani as the electoral chairman, and that was the 1979 general election. And the electoral body that supervised the election for that 79 general election was FEDECO. FEDECO. So both FEC and FEDECO stands for Federal Electoral Commission. Federal Electoral what? Commission. Now to the next one. So we don't have an election here. We have FEDECO and we don't have electoral chairman. So this will be 1983. So there was another election in 1983. The electoral body that supervised the election was FEDECO, Federal Electoral Commission, and the electoral chairman then was Justice Victor Ovie-Whiskey. Victor Ovie-Whiskey. Is that clear? Are you guys following? Yes, sir. So we have another question here. Dash, neck, and we have dash. So which election year had NEC as the electoral body? That was the 1993 general what? Election. 1993 general election. The election was conducted, between two political parties. We had SDP, Social Democratic Party, and we had the NRC. The presidential candidate of SDP was Moshood Kashimawo Olawale Abiola, popularly called MKO Abiola, while the presidential candidate of the NLC was Alhaji Bashar Tofa. So while Abiola had Babagana Kingibe as his vice presidential candidate, Tofa had Evan Enwerem as his vice presidential candidate. But who was the electoral chairman for that 1993 presidential election? It was Professor Humphrey Nwosu. Professor Humphrey what? Nwosu. Now, we now have 2003, 2007, 2011, 2015, 2019, 2023. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there should be one here, 1999. 1999. So the 1999 general election had an electoral body called INEC. And the full meaning of INEC is Independent National Electoral Commission. And the electoral chairman for the 1999 general election was Justice Ephraim Apata. Justice what? Ephraim Apata. So, about a year or thereabout after the presidential election, Ephraim Apata died, and the president appointed a new electoral chairman. And that electoral chairman was the one that supervised the 2003 general election, and his name was Dr. Abel Gobadia. So for 2003, which electoral body? INEC. Now, the electoral chairman was Abel Gobadia. Abel Gobadia. Now, for the 2007 general elections, it was still INEC. So we just do something. INEC, let's put INEC here. INEC here. INEC and then INEC. So we know that we are left with providing solutions and answers to the electoral chairman. So For the 2007 general election, who was the electoral chairman? Professor Maurice Iwu. Maurice what? Iwu. Professor Maurice Iwu. Then for the 2011 general election and 2015 general election, so Professor Atahiru Jega. Professor Atahiru Jega. So Jega conducted the 2011 general election and also the 2015 general what? Jega. Then for the 2019 general election and the 2023, it was conducted by Professor Mahmoud Yakubu. Mahmoud what? Is that clear? Now let's come back to government. So the next question says, lobbying of government is associated with dash. Now, what does it mean to lobby? Lobby means to seek the favor and the goodwill of a person or a group of people or an establishment, to seek their favor, to curry their favor, it has to do with soft diplomacy. Are you getting now? So that is lobbying. Which institution carries out lobbying in the society? The answer is what? Prayer groups. If you don't say prayer group, you can pick interest group. If you don't say interest group, you can pick associational group. If you don't say associational group, you can pick occupational group. If you don't see occupational group, you can then pick trade union. Is that clear? Very good. So prayer groups or interest groups, these groups, they differ from political parties. While a political party like APC, Labour Party, PDP, while such parties have a singular motive, objective, and desire, and that desire is to win election and form government, prayer groups have other motives. The motive of a prayer group or an interest group is not to win election. It is to lobby the government. If the government can be lobbied, and if the government cannot be lobbied, to use violent means to influence government policies for the benefit of their members. Is that clear? So prayer groups can lobby governments. They can go on strike. Strike is also called industrial what? Action. Is that clear? They can do downing of tools, come to work but refuse to work. They can engage in picketing. They can protest. They can demonstrate. They can dialogue with the government. They can use as many tactics and strategies as possible just to be able to achieve their what? Their objectives. Is that clear? Very good. Now, the next question. An human association that has non-voluntary membership is dash. We have different human associations. State is a human association because it consists of people. Nation consists of people. Society consists of people. Political party consists of people, while prayer group also consists of people. But we are now asking for a human association that has non-voluntary membership. What does it mean to have non-voluntary membership? First of all, let us remove the non. That has voluntary, meaning you can choose to join or choose not to join. That is voluntary. Then when we now say something is non-voluntary, it means it is not left to you to decide. It is compulsory. It is mandatory. It is required. It is expedient. It is requisite. You cannot say that you don't want to belong to such an human association. And which association is that? The answer is what? State. Is that clear? What is a state? A state is a politically organized group of people occupying a definite geographical territory under an organized government with permanent and immortal status, enjoying recognition in the Committee of States, and with sovereign power to regulate the conduct of its citizens without external control, e.g., USA, Nigeria. So you can't exist in this life without belonging to a country or a state. So it goes ipso facto to now say that it is compulsory for everyone to belong to a state. It is non-voluntary. Now to the next question. Dash as non-optional membership. That question still tallies with the previous question. Non-voluntary and non-optional. It means it is not voluntary. It is not optional. If something is not optional, it means you don't have an option. Is that clear? Just like a question that does not have options. It means you must find the answer. You are not given anything that can make you either go for this or this. You must be the one to just do it. So when we say an human association that has non-optional membership, it is still what? State. State's membership is compulsory, it is non-voluntary, it is non-optional. Is that clear, students? Now let us go to the next one. Which human association has a membership that is expedient? Expedient means compulsory. Expedient means mandatory. Expedient means required. You cannot opt out of it. It is expedient that we as humans should breathe, because without breath, we are what? We are dead. Is that clear? Very good. So, which human society, which human association has a membership that is what? Expedient. It is still what? A state. It is expedient. It is non-voluntary. It is non-optional. Is that clear? Now, let me attempt a juxtaposition and contradistinction. While the membership of a state is compulsory, membership of a society is not compulsory. I can choose not to be a Muslim. I can choose to not even believe in any God at all. Are you getting now? We have Islamic society, Christianity, we have Jews, we have those who are practicing Zoroastrianism, Buddhism, Confucianism, and so on and so forth. We have different societies too that can be called Society of Medics, doctors. We have literati, those in the literary field. Is that clear? We have Society of Arts and Culture. You can choose not to belong, but you cannot exist in this world without belonging to a country or to a state. Is that clear? Now to the next question. Class nomenclature is associated with which economic model aside from capitalism? The answer should have been capitalism, but they said aside from capitalism. Now, before we can answer, we have to know what nomenclature means. Nomenclature has to do with groupings. It has to do with divisions. It has to do with, distributing things into layers and levels. Upper layer and lower what? Layer. Is that clear? Nomenclature has to do with, dividing things, stratifying things. So it's either you see class nomenclature, class division, or class stratification. Everything still entails that there is an upper class and a what? Lower class. Now, under capitalism, according to Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels, in their book published in 1848 titled Communist Manifesto, he spoke about the upper class under capitalism that refers to the bourgeois. Bourgeois are also known as exploiters, industrialists, manufacturers, entrepreneurs, and so on and so forth. While the lower class refers to the proletariats, the peasants, the laborers, the workers, and so on and so forth. But the question says, aside from capitalism. So the only economic model where we have class stratification aside from capitalism is what? Feudalism. Because under feudalism, all lands belongs to the monarch. And we have the upper class, those that are leasing or renting out the land. The upper class refers to those that are called lords, nobles, knights, or barons. While the lower class refers to those that are called serfs, vassals, fiefs, slaves, peasants, villagers, laborers, servants, slaves, and so on and so forth. Can we now see that under feudalism, the society is stratified? It has nomenclature. It is divided into an upper class and a lower class. Is that clear? Very good. Let's fire on. Secondary laws are also called dash. Before we answer secondary laws, are you getting now? Let's talk about primary laws. Which government institution is primarily responsible for making laws? It is the legislature. Is that clear? The legislature is primarily responsible for doing what? Making laws. That is called law making. And the process for making laws is called legislation. Legislation, legislation. So legislation can mean two things. It can either be the process of making laws or laws. So they can ask you that laws are also called dash. Laws are called statutes. Laws are also called legislations. Is that clear? Very good. So the organ or the agency or the institution of the state that is responsible for primarily making laws is legislature. And such laws made by the legislature are called primary laws or statutory laws. Is that clear? But can we have circumstances that can make other institutions aside from the legislature to make laws? Yes, particularly when the volume of making laws is becoming too cumbersome, too loathsome, too encumbering. Is that clear? So they can delegate part of their lawmaking responsibilities to either the executive or the judiciary, or even delegate or devolve such powers to local government. How be it that local government can now make laws, and the laws made by local government are called what? Bylaws. Bylaws are also made by the executive, while case laws are made by the judiciary. So which organ primarily makes laws? Legislature. Any law made by the legislature is called what? Primary laws. While any law that is not made by the legislature is called what? Secondary laws. If such laws, called secondary laws, are not made by the legislature, which organs of government will make such laws? Executive and judiciary. Now to the next question. So this next question is like a register. So it's going to have many dashes. So it's my duty to unveil the answers. An Australian philosopher named Dash recommended Dash as a system of government that promotes unity in diversity. First of all, when we say unity in diversity, it means that such a country, such a state is diverse. Diverse means disparate, different, multifarious, multifaceted. Is that clear? When something is diverse, when it is diverse, it means it has many shades. When a country is diverse, a country can be diverse in culture. Is that clear? So you can say a country like Nigeria is what? Diverse. Why? Because we have many cultures. We have the Ijos, the Nupes, the Igalas, the Jokuns, the Wukaris, the Yorubos, the Yorubas, and so on and so forth. According to sociologists and anthropologists, Nigeria has over 600 ethnic groups, 600 tribes, and 600 nations. Can you now see that such a country is what? Diverse. So when we have such diverse cultures in a country, which system of government can we practice that will accommodate such different cultures, and that will still help us to maintain unity even amongst that diversity? That system of government is called federalism. Is that clear? Because the only system of government that is suitable for a country with diverse culture is what? Federalism. Unitary system of government, does it apply? No. Unitary can only be practiced where people have same culture, like in UK. Unitary can be practiced in UK. It can be practiced in Israel. Is that clear? Where people have same culture, where it is easy, or rather easier, to govern them from a single place. When people have different cultures, there will be fear of domination. The minorities will fear that the majority attempts to dominate them. And there will then be the need for us to create separate administrative units. There will be a central or federal government and component parts, component units, states or regions. Is that clear? Now, since we have agreed that the system of government that is best suited and suitable for such a country is what? Federalism. Who propounded federalism? An Australian philosopher known as K.C. Ware. Full name, Kenneth Clinton Ware. Is that clear? Let's proceed. Diplomacy is under the Dash legislative list. Under federalism, we have what we call power division lists or power distribution lists. Are you getting now? So we have federal government and component parts. Is that clear? Yeah, like in Nigeria, we have the federal government and we have about 36 states plus one FCT. So because we don't want there to be frequent clashes between the federal government and the states, the Constitution has provided for the responsibilities of each component part. So the Constitution has given the federal government their own responsibilities. The responsibilities of the federal government are contained, codified, and couched under the exclusive legislative list. So any item you come across on the exclusive list belongs to which tier of government? The federal government. What are those items? Items like printing of money. No state government in Nigeria can print money. It is the exclusive preserve of the federal government. Items like immigration, how people, the inflow and outflow of people into and from Nigeria. Items like custom, only the federal government can legislate on custom matters. That's the inflow and outflow of goods. Is that clear? Item that you can find on the exclusive legislative list that belongs to only the federal government is foreign affairs. How a country will be able to relate to another country. Diplomacy is one of the means of conducting a foreign policy. How can a country relate to another country? They can use diplomacy, peaceful method. They can use war or aggression. Is that clear? So that's for the exclusive list. We have the concurrent list. Any item you come across on the concurrent list can be carried out or shared by both the federal government and the states. Items like education. A federal government can have federal universities, state governments can have state universities. Items like health. Federal government can have federal teaching hospitals, state government can have state teaching hospitals. So any item you come across on the concurrent legislative list means that they can be carried out by both the federal government and the states. Is that clear? Now, if there occurs any constitutional clash between the federal government and the state, what will happen? According to the constitution of any federal state, the interest of the federal will do what? It will prevail. While the final list is the residual legislative list. Anything you find on the residual legislative list can be carried out by only the state government. Now, you might see local government in your question. I need you guys to know that local government does not exist in isolation. It is contained under the state government. A state government has the power, the authority, the capacity, the capability to create local governments or to reduce the number of local governments. Is that clear, students?
Yes, sir.
Now let's fire on. Under capitalism, private ownership is dash, while government control is dash. Capitalism as enunciated, expounded, and explicated by Karl Marx has to do with the private or individual ownership of the means of production, distribution, and what? Exchange. Is that clear? Are you following me, students?
Yes,
so whenever we have individuals given the liberty and the opportunity to set up businesses the way they want and to maximize profit and make profit, such economic system or economic model is called what? Capitalism. So what is preponderant? What is dominant? What is common under capitalism? It is the fact that individuals can set up businesses. Is that clear? So we'll say private ownership is dominant under capitalism. Are we now saying that the government does not have any part to play under capitalism? They have a part to play, but that part is minimal. It is reduced. It is limited. Is that clear? So government control is what? Limited. Under capitalism, I reiterate again that private control is dominant. Individual control is dominant, while government control is limited or recessive. Is that clear? Very good. Now to the next question. Under socialism, private ownership is dash, while government control is dash. According to Karl Marx, the continual, repeated, incessant exploitation of the lower class under capitalism by the bourgeois will ultimately lead to class struggle, which will now lead to a revolution whereby the lower class will attempt to assassinate, to murder the upper class because they're exploiting them. And in order to prevent total breakdown of law and order, which in government is called anarchy, the government will be left with no other option than to do what? Take over every economic system. This will now lead to the death of capitalism and now ushering an economic model that is called what? Socialism. What is now socialism? The economic model in which the government controls the means of production, distribution, and what? Exchange. So who controls means of production under socialism? You can either say the government or the states. Is that clear? Very good. So under socialism, which ownership is dominant and which ownership is limited? So you can just invert it. Socialism is the inversion of what? Capitalism. Under capitalism, private ownership is dominant, but under socialism, government control is what? Dominant. Under capitalism, government control is limited, but under socialism, private control is limited. Is that clear? Very good. Let's move on. A type of sovereignty that is not predicated on statutory laws is dash. Now, sovereignty was propounded by a French philosopher known as Jean Bodin. Is that clear? He described sovereignty as the supreme power, the ultimate power, the comprehensive power, the total power, the absolute power, the uninhibited power, the unrestrained power, the indivisible power of a state or a political entity. Power to do what? Power to regulate their internal affairs without external control. So for Nigeria, did we have the power to regulate our internal affairs before 1960? No. After 1960, did we have that power? Yes. What changed? We obtained sovereignty, October 1st, 1960. So it goes ipso facto to show that sovereignty is also known as what? Independence or autonomy. Is that clear? That capacity of a state, the power of a state to make and enforce laws over its citizens and generate compliance and obedience without external aggression, without external interference, without external influence, without external intrusion, and without external intervention. That is what? Sovereignty. Now, we have different types of sovereignty. We have legal sovereignty, political sovereignty, de facto sovereignty, the just sovereignty, parliamentary sovereignty, and so on and so forth. But this question is now asking us that a type of sovereignty that is not predicated. To be predicated means to have a pillar on something, to be based on something. So we can say a type of sovereignty that is not based on statutory laws. Statutory laws are laws made by the legislature. So which type of sovereignty does not come from laws? The answer is de facto sovereignty. Now, you cannot understand de facto sovereignty if you don't understand de jure sovereignty. These phrases are Latin phrases. De jure. De jure has to do with according to law, according to constitution, or based on the law, fundamental law of the land. So anything that is derived from the law of the land, whether de jure power, de jure authority, de jure legitimacy, de jure sovereignty, it is derived according to the law. It is generated based on the law. Why the opposite of de jure is de facto. Now, de facto primarily means that it is not generated based on the law. That is the meaning of de facto. Some might say it is derived based on facts. They are right. We know it to be, not because the law says it is, but because it just exists. So anything that exists or generated, but is not based on the law, that is what? De facto. So a type of sovereignty that is not based on the law is de facto sovereignty, while a type of sovereignty that is according to the law is de jure sovereignty. Now let us proceed. The state of Israel was created in dash, in government. The state of Israel was created in 1948. Now let us proceed. I know some of you will be like, Israel has been existing since biblical times. That's why I said in governments. So the next question, the Nigerian Labour Congress happens not to be dissimilar to Boy Scouts because they are both dash. And we have double negatives there. And we have to trash them into pieces before we can arrive at the correct answer. Nigerian Labour Congress. Nigerian Labour Congress happens not to be dissimilar to Boy Scouts because they are both what? Dash. Nigerian Labour Congress is a prayer group. Boy Scout is a prayer group. Nigerian Labour Congress falls under occupational prayer group, while Boy Scout falls under social prayer groups. Is that clear? Like Red Cross, like Boy Scouts, like Boys Brigade, and so on and so forth. Prayer groups like Christian Association of Nigeria, Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs, and so on and so forth. Those ones, they fall under religious prayer groups. Is that clear? Manufacturer Association of Nigeria, Cocoa Farmers Association, Maize Growers Association, they fall under economic prayer groups. So what makes Nigerian Labour Congress not to be dissimilar to trade unions because they are both prayer groups? If something is not dissimilar, it means it is what? Similar. When you use that not to cancel dis, you are now left with what? Similar. So what makes prayer groups similar to Boy Scouts is because they are both prayer groups. Are they angling? Are they agitating? Do they have the goal, the objective, the focus? Are you getting now? To win election? No, they are not political parties. What do they exist to do? To influence government policies for the benefit of their members or for the benefit of the society. Mind you, I need to chip in this. If you are asked that a type of prayer group that exists to champion the interest of not their members now, but members of the populace, the citizenry, such a prayer group is called what? Who knows the answer here? Who knows the answer? Thank you very much. Promotional prayer group. So let us proceed. Dash describe religion. It was Karl Marx that described religion as the opium. Opium is an hard drug. Opium is something that when you take it, you're out of your senses. Karl Marx believed that political leaders are fond of using religion to make people be subservient, like slaves to the state. Are you getting now? So it was Karl Marx, a German sociologist and philosopher, that you described religion as the opium of the masses. And the last question for this segment. Greek city-states were not uncommon to be described as dash. Now, double negative. Not uncommon means commonly described as dash. Now, in ancient Greece, some 5,000, 6,000 years ago, we had many cities in ancient Greece. We had the city of Sparta, the city of Rhodes, the city of Syracuse, the city of Corinth, the city of Thessalonica, and we had the predominant city. We had the city of Athens, the capital of ancient Greece, which also happens to be the capital of modern Greece. Are you getting now? But all these cities in ancient Greece, they were known as what? Polis. Polis. So Greek city-states were called polis. So we have come to the end of this first segment, and we are going to move to the second segment. So hello, students. So we are switching to the second segment. I believe that we have been able to deal decisively, deal harshly and brutally with those questions. And I believe that with these solutions, you guys can be better positioned to face the forthcoming UTME and bring out the best success that is available there. So today, we are going to be studying a topic called what? Autocracy. What did I say? Autocracy. Autocracy. Another please get me the autocracy. Are you with me? If you check your textbooks, round-up government, all-inclusive government, A-level government, essential government, comprehensive government, and so on and so forth, you will find different types of governments, being separated. But for the purpose of UTME, UTME has to do with the essentials, things that can help you, the indicators, the key points, things that you can master that can assist you guys to go into the exam and identify the correct answers. So we are going to amalgamate, we are going to unify and constellate those systems of government under autocracy. So while democracy has to do with government by the masses or the people, oligarchy has to do with government by few persons. Is that clear? Government by few persons. Government dictated, directed, and supervised by few persons. But autocracy is not like that. Autocracy is a government led by one person. So the first point about autocracy is that it is a government led by one person. Is that clear? Now, if you have a system of government or a form or a type of government led by a singular person, this will show us that such a person will have unlimited powers. Is that clear? Very good. So the second thing we need to know about autocracy is that While it is a government led by one person, that one person rules dictatorially. Rules dictatorially. So we mean that such a person is a dictator. So it's either you say such a person is a dictator or despot, or you say the person is a tyrant. Tyrant. So when someone is ruling without respect for the laws of the land, riding roughshod over the people, disregarding the fundamental laws of the land, such a person has become what? A tyrant. Such a person has become what? A despot. And such a person has become what? Dictator. When the laws of the country are no longer those laws that are codified in the constitution, but those things that are not dictated by a single person, such a person is called what? Dictator. Is that clear? So the first thing about autocracy, government led by one person. Second thing, such one person rules what? Dictatorially. Then the third aspect about autocracy is that there is no respect for fundamental human rights. There is no respect for what? Fundamental human rights. Is that clear? Very good. And then the government controls all aspects of citizens' lives, all aspects of the citizens' lives. So from what you can say to what you can read to how you can, to the party you can even join. Are you getting now? So any autocratic form of government does not give citizens the latitude, the space to do what? To choose between one government and another. It goes to show us that such a system of government will practice how many party system? One party system. One party system. So another thing that you can observe under autocracy is that there is no respect for the press. So let us say gagging of the press. When you gag, so you are putting something in their mouth in such a way that they are restricted from criticizing the government. Is that clear? So lack of press freedom. Mind you, the press is popularly referred to as the fourth organ of government, the fourth estate of the what? Of the realm. So under autocracy, there is lack of press freedom. Is that clear? And then there is centralization of power. All administrative, governmental, and political powers are concentrated, are constellated in a single place. And where is that place? In the hands of the autocratic ruler, who happens to be a dictator, a despot, and a what? A tyrant. Is that correct? Another thing about autocracy that you guys have to take note is that there is the use of secret police. Because the government controls all aspects of citizens' lives, to the extent that you can't even criticize the government now establishes secret police that can help the government to know those that are not attuned and in tune with the government. Is that clear? So much that you can just observe that you are being arrested for what you said the previous day. And while you were saying it, you didn't see any police officer, but there is the use of secret police. So that's another feature of what? Autocracy. Use of secret police. Now, a type of autocracy was practiced in Italy called fascism. Some will say fascism, just get it right. So, fascism happens to be a type of autocracy. It consists of all these features. Now, this is where it differs. Fascism was practiced in which country? Italy. Under Benito Mussolini. Benito Mussolini. So another type of autocracy was practiced, and it was called Nazism. Nazism. How was it practiced? Germany. Under who? Thank you. Adolf Hitler. Now, let me explicate some points about this Nazism, because I think we have a past question that has to do with the fact that Adolf Hitler belonged to which political party? He belonged to the NSP. So, what was the full meaning of NSP? National Socialist Party. Are you getting now? Then, Adolf Hitler also believed in superiority of the Nazis over other ethnic groups. So, a key feature and doctrine of Nazism was racial supremacy. Racial what? Supremacy. They believed that the Nazi race was superior to all other ethnic groups. And this led to the maltreatment, malhandling of people of other ethnic groups, which would ultimately culminate into the death of over 6 million Jews. Is that clear? In Germany then. So that is fascism and that is Nazism. Another type of autocracy that we have is called authoritarianism. We have authoritarianism and we also have totalitarianism. Another type of autocracy that we have is military rule. Is that clear? Military governments are led by one person. Such a person will usually have a military council, but such a person is a dictator, a despot, and a tyrant. You guys will even know that military rulers don't govern with the use of constitution. So military rulers, they govern with the use of martial laws. At the federal level, those laws are called decrees. While at the state level, they are called what? Edicts. And under military government, the rights of citizens are not what? Respected. To that end that military government can even promulgate what we call retroactive laws. A law that is backdated, a law that can be promulgated today to punish a crime that you committed 5 years ago. Is that clear? So that is the extent that military government can go to. So that is that about oligarchy or autocracy. Is that clear? Very good. So can I clean the board? Very good. So let us go to another topic. So we are now going to a topic called organs of government. Organs of what? Government. If you have any question, please do well to ask. I will blast them into pieces. Organs of government. So, in governments, organs of government are also called what? Arms. Arms of government. Arms of government are also called what? Branches of government, or pillars of government, or institutions of government. So if you come across a UTME question that organs of government consist of the following except dash, pillars of government consist of the following except dash, it is still the same question and it will give us the same answer. Is that clear? Now, what are those organs, those pillars, those branches, and those institutions of government? We have legislature, and judiciary. Legislature, executive, and judiciary. Now, let us start with executive. Executive. So, the executive arm of government, from the name, is the arm of government that is responsible for implementing and executing government policies. I'll take that again. The executive arm of government is responsible for executing and implementing government policies. So what are the major functions of the executive? To implement and to do what? Execute laws. Which organ will make laws? Legislature. Which organ will implement? Executive. Which organ will execute? Executive. if you come across a question like this, that formulation of policies is carried out by dash, the answer is also what? Executive. So formulation of policies. They formulate policies. Mind you, if a question comes out in the forthcoming UTME that formulation of policies is carried out by dash, the answer is what? Executive. But if you come across this technical question that under the executive, formulation of policies is carried out by the dash, the answer is the administrative cadre. Is that clear? I need you to note that. So the administrative cadre will formulate policies under the civil service, while the executive cadre will implement government policies under the executive. The executive executes, formulates. Is that clear? But when we now come into the executive, or rather under the executive, which arm of the executive will formulate? The admin cadre, while the executive cadre will do what? Implement government policies. Another function of the executive is to prepare budget. So which organ of government is responsible for preparing budget? That's the executive. And what's budget? Budget has to do with all the estimate of all the monies that we're expecting in a particular year and the analysis of how we'll spend it. That's budget. So the budget for a particular year is usually presented before that year. Is that clear? And a government cannot spend outside the provision of a budget. In fact, a government cannot spend, even within a budget, a government cannot spend the money that is meant for something to another thing. That is an impeachable offense called misappropriation of funds. Because when the budget is prepared by the executive, whether at the state level or at the federal level, it will be forwarded to the legislative organ of government for appropriation and approval. Is that clear? Now, under the legislature, which committee will now sit on the budget to look at it in total? The appropriation committee. They will be the one to apportion it. Okay, 5 billion is enough for this, 10 billion is too much, we slash it down, and so on and so forth. So that appropriation is done by the legislature. But if the executive takes a money that is meant for construction of culverts to pay salaries, it's an impeachable offense because it has been spent in a way that was not what? Appropriated. That is what is called misappropriation of funds, and it is an impeachable offense. Mind you, which organ of government can impeach the executive? The legislature. Is that clear? So if you come across a question like this, that a power exercised by the legislature on the executive is dash, impeachment is a power, oversight is also what? A power. So after the budget has been passed, is that clear? It is now the responsibility, duty, role, and obligation of the legislature to now monitor the executive that, okay, during the course of the year, are you spending that money the way we appropriated it? Now, that role is called oversight. They are overseeing. Is that clear? Very good. So the executive will prepare budget. Another thing that the executive will do, the executive has the power of prerogative of mercy. Prerogative of mercy. So prerogative of mercy is also called what? State pardon. State pardon or amnesty or clemency. So it is a duty, it is a role, it is a power that the executive derives from the Constitution, which gives them the power and the privilege to set offenders free. I don't know, maybe you are getting this now. Actually, it should be the responsibility of the judiciary to punish offenders or to set offenders free. But if you come across a question like this, that a judicial function performed by the executive is what? Prerogative of mercy. And what does it mean? pardoning of offenders. So during Independence Day or during Armed Forces Remembrance Day and so on and so forth, the president at the federal level or the governor at the state level can visit the prison and pardon certain convicted offenders. Is that clear? When the executive carries out such a function, which power are they exercising? The power of prerogative of mercy. Is that clear? Very good. It's also the duty of the executive to appoint ministers. Ministers. So who is a minister? A minister supervises a ministry. The political head of a ministry at the federal level is a minister. Is that clear? So you see Minister of Education, he supervises the Ministry of Education as the political head. But if you come across a question like this, that the accounting head of a ministry, that's the permanent secretary. Is that clear? So he's the accounting head and the personnel head of a ministry. He's a civil servant. Are you getting now? So, but a political head who is appointed by the government of the day to oversee a ministry is called what? Minister at the federal level. At the state level, the political head who assists the governor to oversee a ministry is called commissioner. Is that clear? Why the equivalent of a commissioner at the local government level is called supervisory councillor. Is that clear? So the work that a minister will carry out at the federal is what the commissioner will carry out at the state, and what a supervisory councillor will carry out at the local level. Mind you, supervisory councillor differs from councillors. Is that clear? A councillor is the equivalent of a senator. The work that a senator will carry out at the federal level is what a councillor will carry out at the local level. And what is that work? To make laws. So laws are made by the dash at the local level, councillors. Are you getting now? But who assists the executive chairman of a local government to oversee a department? It is the supervisory councillor. This goes to show that supervisory councillors are appointed, while councillors are what? Elected. Ministers are appointed, senators are elected. Is that clear? Very good. Now let us come back to the executive. So another power of function exercised by the executive is that they enter into treaties. They enter into treaties. Treaties. So it is the duty of the executive to enter into treaty or agreement with other countries. But that treaty cannot become effective and effectual until it has been passed to the legislature for what? For approval. Are you getting now? So if you come across any question like this, that the executive forwards treaties to the legislature for dash, if you see approval, it is correct. If you don't see approval, if you see ratification, it is also what? Correct. So you can see ratified treaty, approved treaty, ratify appointment, approve appointment. Is that clear? And so on and so forth. So what is a treaty? Before I proceed, a treaty is also called an agreement between two or more countries. It could be on matters of defense, just like before independence, we had the Anglo-Nigerian Defense Pact, a military arrangement between Nigeria and Britain to have joint military bases. Is that clear? Very good. So NATO is also a military agreement, not Atlantic Treaty Organization. Warsaw Arrangement or Warsaw Group in Poland is also a military arrangement. So any country that will belong to that arrangement must sign a treaty, and that treaty must be approved by your legislature. Is that clear? So another power that the executive has is to declare war. Declaration of what? War. Whether war within a country or war coming from outside of a country. Is that clear? So the executive carries out the function of declaring war. But that declaration is also subject to the approval of which organ of government? Legislature. Now, why must everything be subject to the approval of the legislature? It is so that the executive will not abuse their power. Did you get that? If the executive can carry out all these things without needing anybody to approve, it means they can just appoint any riffraff They can just declare war just because they feel like declaring. Are you getting now? But since it is subject to the approval or ratification of the legislature, it will be thoroughly considered before it is what? Approved. Is that clear? Very good. So these are the major functions of the executive. At the federal level, the head of the executive is the president. So who is the head of the executive at the federal level? Executive president. Executive president. Why is it executive president? Between 1963 and 1966, Nigeria operated a federal system of government with a parliamentary system of government. Right now, we are operating federal plus presidential. But between 63 and 66, Nigeria operated federal and what? Parliamentary. And what was the meaning? The head of, because it is parliamentary, under parliamentary system, also called cabinet or Westminster system or bicephalous executive, the head of state is different from the head of government. Is that clear? One person will be the head of state, another person will be the head of government. Abubakar Tafawa Balewa was our head of government. He was our prime minister, the primus inter pares, first among equals. While the head of state was a president, not executive president. Executive presidents are elected by the people. Presidents are not elected by the people. They are only appointed by the legislature. Is that clear? Very good. But in 1979, when Nigeria switched to an American-styled presidential system of government for the first time, Alhaji Shehu Shagari became Nigeria's first executive president. So if you come across a question like this, that Nigeria's first president was Dash, and another question like this, Nigeria's first executive president was Dash, two different answers. Nnamdi Azikiwe was Nigeria's first president between 63 and 66 when Tafawa Balewa was the prime minister. So